What's up, guys? I'm with Scott. We've been doing a lot of chat today about both past and future. It's time to talk about the present for a little bit, though. We're going to do a little bit of award talk. Um, we're going to cover, obviously, MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year. I guess we could do reliever. We could do manager of the year if we want to get really in the weeds with it. But yeah, where do you want to start, Scott? I mean, we could. I think
Honestly, I
MVP
want
is
to
a
start
natural
with the
spot.
one that we're both going to agree on, and then we'll move from there.
Okay.
Let's
Okay.
just start with NL Rookie of the Year.
Of course. So you also
I
have,
Jordan Walker, man. I
yeah,
think
I mean,
he's one of the best pure, just in the batter's box, one of the best young hitting prospects I've seen in a long time. I have loved him since before draft night. He was one of the prospects I had circled that I was a big fan of coming out of high school, and yeah, I'm really pumped he made the opening day roster and everything. So yeah, he's for me. Pretty comfortably he's at the top of my list for NL Rookie of the Year for sure.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff under the hood that I do really like with him. I mean, obviously there's gonna be strikeout
Mm-hmm.
concerns with somebody like him, but I mean, like you said, when you make the kind of loud contact that you do as frequently as you do, like that swing and miss stuff is those are negatives that you're 100% going to take.
Yeah.
I'm We have a tough opening series, but part of me really wants to see like second or third game. I want to see him park one like 450 because
Love
I
it.
think Nolan Gorman was the guy last year that I was like, oh, this guy's going to strike out a lot. But I think it was like the first 8 or 9 home runs of Nolan Gorman's career were like barrels. Like he was hitting just absolute no doubts. And I think
Yeah.
Jordan Walker is a similar candidate where, regardless of what the triple slash looks like, that slug is sure going to be sitting nice. And I think he's gonna hit some home runs that are going to make their way in the Sports Center. And all that said, he had an 11% walk rate at Double A. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing is you live with swing and miss and strikeout numbers when you get walks too. You
yeah,
live with that. That's just how baseball is played these days.
my only, I am all for, and I love that you're like this as well. Get pie in the sky with it. He's gonna, move this lineup. My only thing is, no one, Cardinals fans. Oh, I don't think I've been this excited for a prospect since Albert Pujols, and there's a big difference there. Like
Yeah.
We are never going to see a prospect like that ever again. That was a super late pick that hit just so well and then proceeded to have 1,000 OPS as a rookie.
Yeah.
We're pump the brakes. I think if you're expecting, I think he's well capable of winning Rookie of the Year. If he has gosh, I mean, I don't want to like project a stat line, but I mean, if it like, like a 115 WRC plus with the defense he's shown he can play, which is crazy to say because he's changing positions.
Yeah.
AL Rookie of the Year, though, I think Yoshida's an overwhelming favorite, but
I agree. But that happens anytime a foreign player comes over.
right.
And
We said that about Suzuki last year.
right, it rarely ever actually happens. That it's something that every year people talk about it and complain about it and are like, oh, it's not fair, whatever, clearly, and then it never actually happens.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the question I'd ask you is obviously we know Volt made the opening day roster. I think Tristan Casas is like an interesting dark horse because I mean, I think whether it's fair or unfair, media attention is kind of what can land you in that AL Rookie of the Year conversation, or not just AL Rookie of the Year, but the Rookie of the Year conversation.
Yeah.
If you have a profile that is
that's why the favorite is Gunnar Henderson until
right. I think if Casas
play,
if he slugs enough, like for him, it becomes a question of total home runs. I think Hunter Brown is an interesting gambit as well.
I like that.
Houston's really good at unlocking the most out of pitchers, and I've heard scouts talk about how realistically he maybe is like a really, really good closer, and for now is like a good. He's going to be a pretty good. He could be a pretty good starting pitcher, but I've heard some industry heads say like this guy could be an ungodly closer, which I guess that's a team need. But when you're Houston, you know, very diamond shoes are too tight and too many
Right.
50s for the wallet complaint. But I think Hunter Brown's an interesting gambit as well if you want to go for the pitching, because Grayson got sent down, which
Right. Yeah, I my kind of not bona fide like top of that list player that I really like is Josh Young.
mhm.
His brother is one of the Tigers' top prospects now. They just drafted him last draft, Jace Young. But Josh has been one of the better third base prospects in baseball for the Rangers for a couple of years, and I really like what he did in the second half, just like across whatever levels he was playing for last season. And I just think that team. I still don't like believe the Rangers are like good.
Oh,
But
neither do I could talk about that's a
yeah,
separate
I still
conversation, but
don't
I
think they're
don't
like
buy it.
a good team. But I also think that having a prospect that if you really want to, you can put him around hitters like Seager and Simeon. Like
Mhm.
that's like never a bad thing for a prospect. And so they have a lot more that they need to do before I'm like in on the Rangers as a team. But I do really like Josh Young and like value wise, if you don't want to go for like the overwhelming top of the board players, I think that he's kind of a guy to take a look at too. It would not shock me at all if by the All-Star break we were talking about him in the conversation for, if he has a strong second half, he's going to win AL Rookie of the Year.
My concern with him, obviously, you look at 2021, and the strikeout rate was like elevated, but it was similar to Jordan Walker, where it was like double-digit walk rate and a strikeout rate in the minors that was over 20, which like
Right.
you take that with the understanding that there's a at least an ability to draw walks. And I know small sample size, but man, I mean, I want to say he had about 3% walk rate.
It was
And
low.
like, yeah. And, you know, I'm fine in that small of a sample size. If a guy has a 35% K rate, I think that's fine. Like, he's young. It's his first taste of the major leagues. He wants to swing the bat, but
He's going to strike out a lot. Yeah.
right. It's just, I want to see him be able to, it's that situational. And I think I agree with you. Having like adults around him in the lineup is
Yeah.
more than helpful. It just comes down to like how long until Nate Lowe turns into a pumpkin,
Right.
or
Fair
you
enough.
know, can Garcia's under 300 OBP be sustainable again into like a 750 OPS, which
Right.
is
Yeah.
that's concerning. But again, that's more talk for, you know, Rangers slander hour, which I guess we've now signed
Yeah, we can
ourselves
do
up
it.
for.
I'm down.
AL MVP. I mean, I guess the question I'd ask you is, I think we both objectively agree that regardless of what anyone else does, present value Ohtani is the most valuable player in all of baseball.
Yeah.
So the qualifier I want to ask you, because the conversation that I had last year was, if Aaron Judge hits 60 home runs, I think he'll win MVP because voters will. That's like a milestone number. Do you think there is a player that could hit a round number or a percentile based stat that would vault them over Ohtani for MVP this year? And if so, is there one that you have in mind? Because I think there's two players that I think, and it's different requirements for me.
I think I mean, like, I don't know, like if Judge hits 70 homers, like
Right.
like yeah, probably again. Um I don't know. I always default to if Mike Trout plays 160 games or 150 games
Yeah.
even, like what kind of conversation is that going to look like? Because we have yet to see peak healthy Ohtani for a full season, doing two-way for a full season, and a healthy Mike Trout for a full season in the same year. So like the fact that their teammates makes that obviously even more crazy. But that's like my barometer is like who is topping an 150 game season from Mike Trout, and Ohtani still at his best probably does at this point, but like Trout's rate stats, like his 150 stats are still like 10
It's
win seasons.
ridiculous.
Like
Yeah. I mean,
they're
the last
still
time.
absurd. So I think that is not necessarily like a milestone thing. If he's still Mike Trout and plays in 150 games, I think that's the closest thing to a real conversation. Because I think if Judge does like 60 again or whatever, or whatever,
Yeah, I agree.
63 again or something, I think they're probably going to give it to Ohtani, assuming his numbers are what we're used to them being at this point.
So your point about if Trout can play 150, the 4 seasons he's played over 150, his F4 is 10.2, 8.3, 9.3, and 8.6.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, and that's years where he's hit as few as 27 homers and as many as 41. My answer to that was Trout plays 150 and hits 50 homers. Yeah. Then I think he wins MVP because he hit 40 and 119 last year, which, again, like you said, you extrapolate that out to 150.
His rate stats are still just unreal.
My other option with that is if Vlad Guerrero wins Triple Crown and also hits 50 homers. That is how I think it could be.
See, I don't know, man. Like I look at the AL has a lot of really good hitters that don't provide any value on the other side of the ball. Like Jordan's probably not winning MVP, even if he's the best hitter on the planet. Like, and Vlad can make a run. We've seen him before, but like primary first base now, like he would have to have a pretty insane season, to your point, like you said. Like I don't know. Like it's really, and not that Trout is like some incredible defender these days anymore, like he maybe once was, but it's
being in center field and
right.
Playing
he's still going to get that center field value boost. And even if they move him to left, he's still going to get that. You know what I mean? Like he's still going to get boosted like that. I don't know. I think like the only thing I could see where it's not going to one of those two gentlemen is if like Julio Rodriguez just takes another massive step forward.
Okay, let me ask you that. Julio goes 40-40 and has an F4, at least 8 F4.
Yeah, then I think
there's a case. Yeah,
I think he's in. You know, who knows what the other two are going to do, obviously, but I think if that happens, then there's a case for sure.
That'll be. You know, I'm sure you'll love to hear this. I think Adley Rutschman is going to win an American League MVP award the next 4 seasons.
I agree with that, yeah.
Because, I mean, his rookie year.
6 WAR as a rookie, dude.
Correct. He had 6 WAR, and when you look at his, like, numbers, I want to say he only had, like, a dozen homers. And not that he's going to become, like, a 30-homer guy, but peak Adley's probably hitting 20 to 25 bombs.
Yeah, I was going to say 22 to 25, yeah.
Yeah, like that. So we're talking about, you know, like Molina defense, peak Posey hitter.
Yeah.
And he's going to do that, you know, in a hopefully – you know, I always joke that I have like bird allegiance in Major League Baseball. Like I hope the Orioles continue to be good. Well, just when you look that good, man, they got great uniforms. You got a great ballpark, a very good fan base. Like you get it. You're a Tigers fan. You got nice uniforms and a good fan base. Good things should happen to you. I think you'd agree.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, it has been few and far between, but
that's why we hope. That's why we hope.
It's all
National League MVP, it feels like I want to say Arenado. Like I think last year was a really good
Jordan Walker plus 20,000, by the way, odds to win NL MVP.
Listen, man, that's one of those things where like
we'll throw $1 on it.
A great caveat to this was like last year I traded Jordan Walker in my like Dynasty Fantasy League. It was the trade I got Riley Green in. He was like part of that. And now that he's like had another insane year and like blown up, my friends were trying to give me like a little bit of shit over it. And I'm like, I don't think you guys understand that I enjoy nothing more than trading away a Cardinals player in fantasy. Because if they're terrible, that's awesome. I win the fantasy trade. If they're amazing, the thing that I care about infinitely more, like I don't like, oh no, Jordan Walker's amazing. So I hope he wins. I hope he wins 12 MVPs. Like I hope he's Pujols. That'd be amazing.
Well, this year, the NL MVP race is kind of crazy.
That's what I'm saying. I think the National League MVP, I know like AL MVP just sheerly because of Trout and Ohtani is very like, it's always an interesting gamble of like, it used to be just Trout versus the field, and now it's kind of Trout / Ohtani. The field. Yeah. But I think the National League MVP, I think last year was an incredibly interesting race.
I think this, like, I'm not kidding. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm like, there's 9 dudes I could be
Yeah.
like, yeah, they could win MVP.
And I think what's awesome about that, as like a baseball fan, I'm sure you'd agree. Like typically that normally comes in a year where you look at it and like it's because oh well, there's
No,
yeah,
not
there's been
like
years
an
there's been
overwhelming guy at the top or something.
there's
Yeah.
been years where a guy's won MVP and you're kind of like, oh, it's really because we had oh wow 6.1 led the National League in WAR.
Right.
Awesome. No, this is a year where like 15th place could have 6 WAR.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
And I don't know. I just think that Arenado is due for an MVP. I think Paul Goldschmidt was due for an MVP, and then he finally just like had a year like hitting that well in Busch, where it's a pitcher's park, it's not a power park, and putting up the best offensive year of his career after leaving an offensive run environment after being kind of the other guy. And Arenado was that other guy as well. I think they were both, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And I don't think there's an overwhelming favorite. It's very, and I think if Arenado just has the year that he had last year, he could win MVP. Because I love Paul Goldschmidt. I don't think he's going to OPS 980 again or whatever it was.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Nato's always going to be in that conversation. It's hard for me, like, and I always think, again, like, assuming health right now,
yes,
it's really difficult for me to, like, turn an eye on Acuna at this point. Like, that's
very fair. Very,
you know
fair.
what I mean? Like, he's had such prolonged injury stuff over the last 2 seasons that, like, finally, like, we're being told that we're going to get an assumed healthy season out of him. Like, I mean, that's a guy with 40-40 potential. Like, if they really let him run.
That's one of my hot takes this year. I think he will.
Yeah. So, like that's certainly one. Like, obviously Mookie's always going to be in that conversation. Juan Soto is is kind of a wild card that like wouldn't surprise me, but also like I don't know. Last year he was kind of broken a little bit, so we'll see.
I was gonna say if you are a fan,
like, Tatis is like back this year. You know what I mean? Like
I think as PED punishment, he will not win MVP this year because he's still suspended for the first month or so. And I think that there's still as we can debate if it's fair or not, but there's definitely sort of I'll say this. Some of the things he was doing was, like not telling the team you got in multiple vehicle accidents in the offseason. I think objectively we can say, regardless of like, how the media tends to treat non-white players, that you got to tell the team. I don't think there's a narrative being pushed there of like when he unironically replied to the team, which one, when they asked about an off-season motorcycle accident. That's a bad look. So I think that this year is maybe sort of keep his head down apology tour. What I was going to go back to and say, if you're a fan of or picking anyone that's not Soto or Acuna being like, I'm finally healthy. Like bad Acuna was like an almost 800 OPS player. Like
dude, that's
in bad shape. Like, and Soto has made multiple comments saying this is the best he's seen the ball his entire career. He's made a bunch of comments to the media saying like, yeah, last year something happened where I just wasn't seeing it the way I always did, which like LOL, he still had an 850 OPS.
Right.
And he's been like really popping off, and not in a way that I buy. Not just it's not a best shape of my life comment. He's saying like I fixed what was wrong,
right?
Which that's only
terrifying. Yeah, and like I mean, it's insane that
his Dodgers contract is going to go crazy.
Machado, like all on the same team, all in that conversation.
Dude,
Freeman's
people
always
forget
in
like
that conversation. Trey Turner, Mr. USA after the WBC is
man, that was great television.
Yeah, certainly slated to if he stays healthy for a full year, like golly, he could absolutely, especially with how many bases they're probably going to let him steal this year with the rule changes and stuff. I don't know, man. He's in that conversation too. There's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know I have to go look at the run tendencies of oh gosh, what's his name? The guy that they removed the interim tag from, or acting tag, I should say. The Phillies manager.
I don't know. I keep wanting to say just Joe Girardi.
Right. You're right. Is it Rob something?
I literally can only think of Joe Girardi.
It's Rob Thompson. That's the
Thompson,
gentleman's
yeah.
name. And honestly, good. Hey, look, good for him, man. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. It just for National League MVP, it's definitely a little bit of a homer take, but it's also just like in a year where there's not an overwhelming favorite. If Arenado does not even exactly, he'd be a little bit worse because he had the best WRC plus of his career last year, which is nuts to say. But it's definitely a little bit homer. But I just think in a year where there's no overwhelming favorite, unless we see somebody do something crazy out of their, like we've already seen Soto OPS 1,000. You know what I'm saying? There's no milestone, I think, or big number. I guess maybe it's 40-40 for Acuna. I think that might be the only deterrent. But
Yeah.
I also think that Braves lineup might have a tendency to hide the greatness.
Yeah, I guess. It's just I don't know. Like it really is. NL MVP is kind of wild. It's just it's not like you said at the beginning. It's not like it's not an overwhelming. Isn't an overwhelming favorite because like the league leader and the NL MVP is going to have like 6 WAR. Like,
yeah,
it's an overwhelming favorite because 9 of these dudes could WAR 8.
You know, I'm sure, you know, we say this and then Rodolfo Castro is going to have a 9 homer April and we're going to be, you know,
what a dog.
Hey, I name dropped him for a reason. I jokingly said we could have Rangers disparagement hour. I'll talk to some Pirates praise. Like bro, if you look at their lineup, their team, the biggest thing I think when I look at a team rebuilding and becoming good again is like, do you have adults in your lineup? They don't have to be amazing. Like Ji-Man Choi is not going to knock my socks off. But that's a grown adult that's going to be a positive contributor every single day. I love their first base platoon, like Rodolfo, like Brian. O'Neal Cruz is a monster. Oh my God. I don't know. They're my forever second place in the NL Central team, dude. I hope they get second place every year. What are we on now? Cy Young? I think we're going to talk about when we talk about no clear emergence either. I think we are blessed to be in the era that we're in with pitching because it almost feels like NL Cy Young or AL. There's no wrong answer. But I guess we can start with the National League.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's very easy to – if Sandy repeats last season, there's your NL Cy Young.
Like, dude, yeah. I'm curious to see, like, obviously the AL winner from last year is now in the National League. I'm curious to see Verlander's because, I mean, if you go and you look at his expected statistics, they go from God tier actual results to still all-star top 10 Cy Young expected results, but definitely not this, like, I mean, you're a Tigers fan. I think you can speak on it. Like that was like peak Tigers Verlander at points, like for flashes. It was
if not even like dare I say a little better at points, like
which is crazy to say for a 40-year-old.
Yeah, and like a first ballot Hall of Famer if he just retired when he blew his arm out.
Like, yeah, he could have walked away in 2020, and I think he was yeah, I mean, so I don't know. It's as much as I root and pray for the Mets' downfall, like I don't ever pray on JV's downfall because, you know.
Dog. I mean, like Corbin Burns, always going to be in that conversation as well. I think like there's some fun up-and-comers, though. Like Spencer Strider is like, that's a really fun one.
My insane pick is Hunter Green. I might not be this year.
You're all about Hunter Green.
I mean, dude, he figured out that it's crazy to say, but he had to figure out that his 105 mile an hour fastball is not his strikeout pitch.
Right.
Like he learned that, that's what I need to do to establish the count. And I need to develop a changeup. And my slider can't just be this like, I need to throw a breaking ball pitch. I don't know. You look at his last like 8 starts, I want to say he had like a sub-2 ERA. His K to walk ratio was unbelievable. I mean, I might be a year early on it, but I'm putting it out there now that like, I think he's going to be the Reds Cy Young pick, or excuse me, the Reds All-Star pick. And I think he's maybe a down ballot, but like if they had an average ballpark, like we may be talking about this year, like if they didn't have, oh my gosh, somebody on Twitter called it Coors Light. Which I love, and I'm using that from here on out because that's fantastic. But I agree, there's definitely some dark horses. But
yeah, he's. I mean, Absolutely. And that, I mean, you have the usual suspects too, obviously, but yeah, I kind of like that. I also think not that he'll win Cy Young or anything, but like Dustin May's back.
He is.
So
This
like,
honestly could be one of those years where Julio Urias is just
yeah, obviously he could
because
take
I
a
mean
big step.
I knew that definitely in 2021 it was just like, oh, we just got a lot of wins, and I think he did it again in 2022. But he won the ERA title. Like
Yeah.
um, he is definitely the kind of pitcher that I think if you and I were sitting here on cable access television in 1983, he'd be the defending Cy Young winner right now in the National League. But I had to make the media conversion in my head. That's why that took a second. But I also think Aaron Nola could win because it's a contract year.
Yeah, of course.
I future Cardinal. I hope. I got to put it in.
Yeah, all right. Calm down. Different conversation.
It is a different conversation, but it's a contract year, and the fact that his agent was like, "Yeah, we weren't." That's another thing. I think Corbin Burns. I think I do buy into the pitching or hitting angry, wanting an extension. I think that's real.
Yeah.
Because Burns' comments, those were very interesting. Him being like, yeah, I didn't get to have Valentine's Day with my wife because the Brewers argued in court that I was the reason we missed the playoffs. And I was just like, oh, I'm like, you're gone. And I was like, thank God. I hope you get paid. I hope you get paid $1 billion to pitch in whatever division plays my team the least in the future.
Yeah, he's a monster.
But I agree. I mean, it's tough. If I had to pick one guy, for the sake of I love players resetting the market and getting paid, I'll take Aaron Nola in the contract year. Why not?
I'll take Burns.
That's a valid. You knew I wasn't gonna pick the Brewer, though.
I knew you weren't going AL Central.
That's I picked the guy that helped eliminate my team from the playoffs. So I'm being enough of a man with that pick.
It's growth.
AL Cy Young.
Well, the conversation starts every year like it has for the last 5 for the National League Cy Young, which is how healthy is Jacob deGrom going to be, and then you go from there.
Right, and I'll ask you: do you think that we're ever going to get? And I think that this is maybe more of a philosophical question about how you want to evaluate baseball talent, but to me, the reason I think Sandy was such a clear Cy Young was like that was such a like Chris Carpenter, Roy Halladay prime.
An old school.
We're aging ourselves, TikTok audience. I'm so sorry, but as men in their early / mid 20s, seeing a dude go out and throw 230 innings,
awesome,
of like slightly above average strikeouts, but like didn't blow you away, but just this cyborg of efficiency.
It's the one.
DeGrom's like the opposite.
Right. I agree. He's the complete opposite. He doesn't go deep into games and all that, but for the amount of batters he does face, he's the best pitcher in baseball. And so
pound for pound is a good way to describe.
Right. So that's the thing about Sandy, to your point, that was so cool was, like the only thing that, and I think we've had this conversation before, but like the only thing with like the new era of baseball that I really miss about the old era of baseball is pitchers going deep into ball games. Like
it's amazing.
There was
so
nothing cooler growing up in Detroit, like growing up and seeing Justin Verlander go like 7-8 innings every 5th day, right? Like there was nothing cooler than that. Even like if you want to go further back, like in elementary school, there was nothing cooler than watching 42-year-old Kenny Rogers like throw 2 strikeouts and top out at 82 miles an hour and go 7 in 1 earned ball. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's that's like the one, if there's one part of like newer age baseball that I could change back to old school, that's really the only one that I legitimately miss a lot is just like pitchers racking up 200 plus innings consistently, 220 innings and going deep into ball games on a night in and night out basis. And
obviously speaking to that,
DeGrom doesn't do that and never really has.
If you go back and look at like your team's pitching staff from like 2005. If you guys go do that on BRF right now, you're going to find guys that, like you said, they threw 198 innings of 5 ERA ball. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not pleasant to watch. But I agree with you. I think the reason that it still plays, though, is clearly if you're elite enough, like Verlander still does it.
Yeah.
Like there is, I think, 100% an argument to be made within the analytics community. And it's the same argument that I think you could make for something like
if DeGrom's arm could hold up, he would.
Right.
Like the analytics don't say DeGrom sucks the third time through the order. He's dominant always. He just literally hasn't proven the ability to do it.
I just think that what I'm saying though is I think that is something that I know analytics tends to shy away from third time of the order. It's like, oh, you should go to the bullpen then. But I think that speaks to what you and I are wishing for is that is player development. Like you can draft a guy and tell him like, you're going to go like, and whether that's a question of total pitches thrown or whether that's a question of et cetera, any of that stuff. That is something I hope when we see the future of player development is that I want to see guys that have that ability to do that and seek out the ability to do that. Because I think guys like DeGrom probably say, oh, I only want to go 5 or 6, like just from a health standpoint. And I'm sure when he's talking with the Rangers, that was part of the conversation they had of expectations of I'm not saying they're putting him on a pitch count, but a non sort of under the table pitch count almost of like, when I'm done, I'm going to want to be done. Like I think that there are plenty of top pitching prospects, maybe even like a Gavin Stone's maybe a good example. He has these crazy strikeouts. He only tops out at like his fastball sits at 92 to 94. Like he's that archetype of guy that can get strikeouts, which is what analytics wants, but does it with efficiency. And that is what I think that's what I think we also miss. We miss the days of less walks that pitchers gave up. Not that I love walks when a hitter gets them. It's very,
Well, of course.
Yeah, exactly. It's hot takes. That's why you follow us here. So we give, scorching baseball analysis like walks are good. But
yeah, I mean, I do think that, to the original, like we've been talking about DeGrom this whole time, like there's certainly a lot of, like DeGrom is far from just like a slam dunk because no one knows how often he's going to pitch. If DeGrom were to, like, if you could guarantee me today that Jacob DeGrom is going to pitch 200 innings, I'd throw my mortgage on him winning
100%.
the American League.
The clothes on my back would be
right. Yeah, I would have $0 in my bank account and I would just be broke for the next 6 months. And then I would be like, but that's not the case. And so like Cole's always going to be in that conversation. I mean, people love to do the Ohtani, can he win Cy Young just because like whatever.
I would love for it to happen.
Yeah, I think everyone would. But like, I don't know, you have similar conversations with DeGrom that we have with like guys like Shane McClanahan. Like if he can do a full season, obviously he has the ability to get in that conversation. Dylan Cease is someone that's gained a lot of traction and like national media pundits for like Cy Young race. And I mean, I'm not going to do it, but like that's
I was going to say, it is funny to see that as someone from the Chicago suburbs that has White Sox friends and someone that, gets paid to talk about the Tigers for a living and have their nose in the AL Central constantly. We've been a part of watching that indie band rise to, main stage at Lollapalooza with Dylan Cease, which is funny. I'm not picking him for one. One spring start is like never the right thing to do, but I think his last spring start or second last, he gave up like 11 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning. And he gives up too much hard contact for my
AL Cy Young is kind of a bleep show, man.
So the other thing I was going to talk about as well is
kind of a train wreck, not in a bad way, just like who knows?
Yeah. So the thing with Garrett Cole that I think makes it, we're an internet-based audience. Don't ever read people's opinions of Garrett Cole on Yankees Twitter. They will have you convinced that guy is not a top 5 pitcher in baseball. Right. And he absolutely is. Like, without question, what Scott and I are just talking about, like, oh, man, the guy that can go 7 or 8 and pump like 12 strikeouts and throw like 115 pitch. That's what Garrett Cole would like to do every single start.
Correct.
That is his job. That's why he enjoyed being a college pitcher so much. The point with Cole is a little tinfoil hatty, but MLB came out, it was revealed that the Yankees are getting a little bit of gopher balls with Judge towards the end there. I'm not just putting like a wild theory out there. There's hard data that backs it up. I don't remember who published it, but
a few people, but yeah.
There was a few major outlets reported on that. I look at that and I look at the fact that Cole's home run rate was really elevated and spiked. I'm taking that into account because he had, I think, an ERA in the mid threes last year.
He did, yeah.
Which, given like his whip, and I still believe he led the league in strikeouts total. Clearly, he's a good he has not fallen off. I think even a half step. So, I think my pick. I hate giving the Yankees. There's Yankee national media bias. There's East Coast bias. There's that Yankees are probably. I think we can pretty confidently say not going to have that gopher ball again. The only caveat I say with that is allegedly they're checking for sticky stuff hard again. That's the plan this year. So that's the only, if I'm going to give tinfoil hat pro, I got to give a tinfoil hat con, but
fair enough.
I guess my pick is Kermit the Frog for AL Cy Young.
Fair enough. Yeah. Can't go wrong with that.
Do you want to do, I'll do manager of the year. Cause I think it's a little kooky to go manager of the year, but do you have like somebody in mind? Because
so
I have a pick.
The thing with manager of the year for me is it is essentially a most improved team award is essentially what it is.
Can be, definitely can be, yeah.
Most of the time, manager of the year either goes to like if a team has over 105 wins in the regular season, or if a team improves by like 12 games or 15 or 20 games or something ridiculous from the previous season. That's historically, in general, those are like the two things that lead to manager of the years the most. So when thinking about, like, there's always a chance that the Astros just win 109 games and they're like, oh, let's give it to Dusty or whatever. Like that's got
to give Dusty some shine though. I would be that mad.
Yeah. I mean, like that it's never, that's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but in general, it really does seem to go to like a most improved team type of award. And with that, I don't know. I feel like an old man yelling at a cloud sometimes. Like everybody's like, oh, don't you love like the Orioles this year? And I'm like, honestly, like, no, I think they're still like a year away. I think they're going to get last place in the AL East. Don't you love the Pirates this year? Like, no, I think they're still probably like a year away. I think they're going to be one of the like second, fourth in the NL Central. So like all like the hot, like national media, like, oh, like, this team's going to take a huge jump this year. Like I'm not really on those bandwagons as much.
More than fair.
But I would say that I think there is a chance, looking in my own division, and I know that's kind of scary because the AL Central is awful, but I do think if the White Sox win the AL Central, that's a wrap. Because
I'd agree.
Because La Russa, like he's out, right? Like La Russa's done. They, bring in outside talent, everything, and if they immediately just snap out of it and they snap back to reality, up there goes gravity. Then
I was about to do it. If you didn't do it,
right? Like I don't even think it's a contest. I think if the Chicago White Sox win the American League Central, that's where AL Manager of the Year is going. I can't even remember the dude's name right now, but that's where I think it's going, and I don't even think it would be really much of a conversation.
So you're taking Pedro Grifol for Manager of the Year.
Yes, there you go.
So
yes,
it's funny that you mentioned Brandon Hyde and the Orioles as the national media is taking them to make this like big next step, right? I think there's the expectation. I think the reason Brandon Hyde could win Manager of the Year again is the total talent on the roster, which I know they have Gunnar like for a full season and Adley healthy for a full season. Cole Irvin, Kyle Gibson, in terms of roster talent, it feels the same. Yeah. I think the way Brandon Hyde wins Manager of the Year for the American League this year is if the Orioles are like even are marginally better, but like have a winning record again.
I think they have to make the wild card for him. I think they have to make the playoffs for him to win Manager of the Year.
I see the argument that I look at the other teams where it could be like it's the other answer we're not looking at is if the Angels make I'll say if the Angels make, even if the White Sox win the division, if the Angels make the playoffs, it's Phil Nevin. If the Angels make the playoffs, it's going Phil Nevin 100%. But I don't know. I will be more impressed. Like, it sounds really weird to say. If the Orioles have the exact same record this year, I'll be more impressed with Brandon Hyde than I was last year. Because last year they were that little engine that could, and like, you know, they had the mojo. That Rougned Odor was like randomly a clutch god for them. Like,
correct, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those years where it's like, oh, this is just a fun team having a good year. That's awesome. Now they have expectations. Now it's not Adley given the, you know, taking the mask off and giving the wave and being like, wow, it doesn't matter how many games we win this year. He's here.
Right.
I look at it and I see a roster that's similarly talented that like maybe should have a winning record. And if they do, I don't know, I'll be more impressed with him. So maybe you're right in that the national media optics, he won't win it. But I think in terms of for the American League, I'll be impressed if they have a winning record again. And if they're in the wild card hunt. So I want to say winning record, 82 and 80, probably not. But if they're 86 and 76 and are in it the last week, last 2-3 days, I don't know. I'm inclined to want to give it to him because you could have made the argument he should have won last year.
Sure.
Because I feel like the Mariners went 90 and 72 in 2021 and didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like,
that's fair. That's fair.
Speaking of what you're saying, like, I don't know. I was like, that's a playoff team. They're going to make the playoffs. And then they did. So National League, this is where most improved. I'm going Skip Schumacher in the Miami Marlins.
I think, honestly, if I had to make odds, I'd say he's the favorite. I agree with you.
And I say that as someone that I say that not just because of what you talked about, the opportunity. I'm going to speak purely as I got to watch him be my bench coach last year. And I got to see like day to day, I got to see Katie Wu at the Athletic and Ben Friedrichsen at the Post-Dispatch give me those day to day or weekly sort of look into what the relationship that he had with Oli Marmol and what that was like. And knowing who he was as a player and how fast he's risen through the coaching ranks. We're talking about a guy who I think even 3 years ago was the Padres' first base coach, I think or was it 2019? But my point being is like we're talking about a dude who went from base to bench to head to head of an entire operation in 5-6 years time. I think that speaks to the talent he has. And, you know, like I said, obviously a little bit of personal bias. I like the guy immensely. He's a fun, kind of scrappy fan favorite as a player. And by all accounts, seems to be a really nice guy. And the Marlins, I don't think they're going to have a winning record, but I think they're going to be, I think Kim has done a good job of making that team, whether it's car accident television or like the Sopranos television, it's must watch. That's what I think the Marlins are going to be this year.
Right. That's the thing is everybody else in baseball is going left and with the rule changes and everything, they are trying to go right. Like they're going to, the host of Locked On Marlins calls it their offense death by a million paper cuts. Like they're just going to hit it.
That's a very good way to describe it.
Like that's kind of their mindset. So and they have the pitching. And so
their pitching, man.
Yeah, I still think it's a really tall task to expect them to like have an 84 or higher like win total in that division.
I agree.
But I think that if there was ever a team to kind of take a step forward and be like the Orioles of last year, I think it would be
wow, you think Marlins. It's Miami?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a fun question. For me, I'd say it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, see, I'm still a year off on Pitt.
People like to be out on, I just think because of the vibes. Like McCutchen re-signing with them. McCutchen re-signing to me was like a big indicator because is McCutchen like McCutchen's not an all-star anymore, but if you look at his numbers, like that's a league average hitter.
Still,
yeah, like league average to slightly above average league hitter, can hit for power, can play the outfield spots, can DH, is also by all accounts an amazing person.
Yep.
I mean, I know and typically every veteran at the sunset of their career goes, I didn't just sign with this team to, like have a job. I did it because I think this team can win games. I kind of believe it with McCutchen. Like, I think that he chose to resign with them now because I think I agree with you. I think they're a year away from being serious contenders, but I think that he's going to be on that team through their sort of guide them through to those gates of as that build up. And I think that by choosing to join now, I don't know. I like the G-Man Choi trade. I think the Pirates could be
their offseason. I just think I think they set it up for like the future more so than like they're going to do anything really spectacular this season. That's all.
If Mitch Keller is a league average pitcher, I'll like fall on my ass. Like that. Like, dude, he is maybe the peak like touch grass analytics kid's favorite pitcher. Like,
correct. Yeah.
It's all of his stuff. His peripherals are nasty. And then it's like, how does he have a 6.5 ERA?
Right. Yep. Correct.
And then you have, Steven Matz being like, you're going to get 88 on the changeup, 3.7 ERA. Okay. Sure, dude.
Beauty.
All right. That's the award picks, unless you want to do reliever of the year, but I don't think.
No, I don't.
That could be, Alex Lang.
No. Alex Lang, AL.
And Ryan Helsley in the NL. Look at that.
Beauty.
You're completely unbiased, unanimous agreements. That's fantastic.
Beauty.
But yeah, those are our award picks. Feel free to tell us if you agree or disagree. I'm sure we'll be wrong on all of them but one.